Okay, we've got to keep our eyes on the charts now because Binance is restarting their trading engines. I see Bitcoin is back at 27,934, so almost 28,000. Let's see what happens when Binance actually start the engines and whether we get this like inflow of funds as start the engines and whether we get this like inflow of funds as start the engines. And there we go. So are we going to get this inflow of funds like CZ said we'd be getting, or is it just going to be what it is? Also, let's watch Arbitrum today. So we did say yesterday that we were trying to get in at 110. You remember, it's not 143.25. No entry point for me, that's for sure. But we'll talk about that today as well on the show. Also, we're going to talk about another bank collapsing, possibly Deutsche Bank. That's what the market's telling you now. Another bank going down. I was looking at the Deutsche Bank charts. That's the Deutsche Bank chart. It's not that bad. I mean, it's bad if you zoom out. But today on the day, it's 7% down. But what's more scary is that the credit default swaps, which is the probabilities that Deutsche Bank is going to go down as priced by the market, they're not looking so good. So we're going to talk about Deutsche Bank. We're going to talk about Arbitrum. We're going to talk about Operation Choke Point. We're going to talk about Balaji's $1 million bet. We're going to talk about Do Kwon being arrested. We're going to talk about Arbitrum. We're going to talk about HEX. We've got a lot to talk about today. It's Friday. It's a massive show. Get out of bed, guys. Get out of bed.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go. Get up, and then they got go. Time to wake up, bitch. Get up. Get up. Get up.
All right. Binance spot trading is actually back up. So Binance spot trading is back up. Everything looks fine. I don't actually know why the market was so panicked about Binance going down today. I mean, it was just one centralized exchange going down. There are many other centralized exchanges. Anyway, we're back to normal. Bitcoin is at 27,955. And if you have been watching Arbitrum like us, it's 142.50. Not an entry point for us. Listen, welcome back, guys. It's Friday. It's Banter Friday. And today I've got a massive Banter Friday for you. We're reuniting some degens of previous bull markets. Not only one bull market, but actually several bull markets. So we've got all the degens together. And we think that if we get all the degens together and we talk about Altseason and we talk about Altseason for long enough, we actually might even get this Altseason. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about who phones me during a show. That's absolutely crazy. We're going to talk about Operation Choke Point because this thing is getting real. Hold on. Let's kill that. We're going to talk about Operation Choke Point because this Operation Choke Point is actually getting real. It's getting scary. We're going to talk about Deutsche Bank. We're going to talk about whether this banking collapse is a lot more scary than either Janet Yellen or Powell actually want to let on. We're going to talk about Arbitrum and whether there's a good entry into Arbitrum. And then I want to talk about Do Kwon because I kind of feel a little bit let down by Do Kwon. I really thought that he was operating in good faith, trying to change the financial system. And I think things obviously must have gone sour or must have gone south if the guy's forging passports and ID documents and now basically being a fugitive that's been caught and wanted in Korea, wanted in the United States. So lots to talk about today. It's going to be a massive Friday banter. Remember that our Friday banters are brought to you by NordVPN. Now, I want you guys to pay attention for 2 seconds. So there is a link below to get a VPN. That's a normal VPN. And what that does is it protects your IP address. It masks your IP address to make sure that when you're surfing, you're actually surfing anonymously and that you don't tell hackers, decentralized exchanges, authorities, regulators who you are and where you are. That's what your IP address actually reveals. And so by now, you guys should all be surfing with a VPN. If you're in crypto, you should be surfing with a VPN. There's 101 reasons to do that. But they've also launched another product, which is it's this new product, which you probably would have seen. It's called Incogni. Now, what this Incogni product does, you know, when there are data breaches from big providers and your data gets stolen from those providers, well, this product removes you from those databases that have eventually been sold. So this is what that product does. So if you believe that your data may have been breached, this data will actually let you, this product will actually let you check that. And it will also remove you from those bases. So another good reason to sign up. And the last good reason to sign up is because they are the crypto VPN. They are the guys that allow us to bring you these amazing Friday Banter shows and the Twitter spaces that we do. So support them because they support us. All right, so big show today. I'm reuniting a crew I'm reuniting the altcoin bull market crew. Some of them stopped streaming and now are back, and that's probably a good sign that we're getting a bull run. So I've got Ivan with me. Ivan, welcome back, buddy. I think the last time we did this, it was like peak FOMO mania.
It was in 2021, I believe. Good to be back.
Yeah, and I've got Elio, also the altcoin degen king.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Ren.
And I've got Ishan with us. Now, guys, in the chat, so there are 3 degens here and one who's not a degen. Okay, so don't judge us now. Don't judge us now. Let us put our best foot forward. And then during the show and at the end of the show, let us know who you believe the 3 degens are and who the one non-degen in this chat is. I think that's fair. What do you think? Yeah, okay. So listen, there's lots to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. I don't even know where to start. We had such a big week. I anticipated this week at one point that Powell wouldn't raise interest rates. But then as time went on, I realized that he's actually going to increase interest rates. And then I changed my attention to what would his media press release be about. And in the media press release, he was like pretty firm on a few things. The first thing is they were pretty firm on the fact that there were going to be no rate cuts this year. They said no rate cuts in 2023. They looked at the dot plot. The dot plot said no rate cuts in 2023. Second thing is, I wondered whether Powell would speak about the banking collapse. And he did. And when he spoke about the banking collapse, this is what he said, okay? I was hoping that he'd come up and say, look, we're cognizant of the fact that the banks are going down. Having reviewed this, we take the following policy actions. But that's not what he said. In fact, let's listen to what he actually did say. It's the first thing that he said. It's silent because he's not there, James. When he talks, you'll hear him talking.
Good afternoon. Before discussing today's meeting, let me briefly address recent developments in the banking sector. In the past 2 weeks, serious difficulties at a small number of banks have emerged.
Small number of
History
banks.
has shown that isolated banking problems, if
Isolated.
left unaddressed, can undermine confidence in healthy banks and threaten the ability of the banking system as a whole to play its vital role in supporting the savings and credit needs of households and businesses. That is why, in response to these events, the Federal Reserve, working with the Treasury Department and the FDIC, took decisive actions to protect the U.S. economy and to strengthen public confidence in our banking system.
So it's a small number of banks and it's very, very, very isolated. And apparently it's actually all as a result of bad management by Silicon Valley Bank. And so the Fed believes that they can continue to increase interest rates. That said, the market doesn't actually believe what the Fed's saying. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the interest rate forecast here and you look at the probabilities, the market is actually starting to price one cut in July, one cut in September, one cut in November, and one cut in December. So the market's actually pricing in 4 rate cuts, despite the fact that the Fed is saying, we're not going to give you any rate cuts. Could someone help me here, please? Ivan, maybe you can help me here.
Well, I mean, I think it's so funny that the whole world tries to understand exactly what he meant. Oh, he said will and not may, or vice versa. This time he said may. Last time he said will. We will, we may. I find it ridiculous. And listen, Bitcoin is clearly showing that at the end of the day, we have something special going on here. And that's that the narrative has changed. Bitcoin is a safe haven. Stable coins failed. Banking failed. Bitcoin is so nice. It's global. It's worldwide. I'm such a believer in Bitcoin now after the recent collapses that to be honest, I'm not really into this, reading Powell's mood each and every speech. So I cannot help you on exactly that. I'm just telling you that, listen, right now the times are definitely shifting in terms of narrative. And I love that because for the first time ever, Bitcoin is finally doing what it was supposed to do, to be a good alternative to the chaos of TradFi. And it is happening in a big way. You see, we have negative news. We have SEC suing Coinbase. We have problems with all kinds of stuff, banks shutting down access, we're having so many bearish news, and look at the price, it pumps. It's fantastic. Why? Because there are no more sellers. We've had a massive collapse, a very brutal collapse from 70K all the way to 15 or 16 where it was. And when price pumps on bearish news, that's very good. It's kind of like when price dumps on bullishness in a bull market, you know that, listen, it is ending. But now we have vice versa. Price pumps on bearish news. So all in all, and he even increased interest rates. It's still pumping, it's still not dumping. So listen, I'm not reading his each and every sentence, but overall, things are very different than before. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that.
Look, you've got my vote for Degen. So just by the way, you know when they have the beauty pageants, they have the beauty pageants, and then the ladies go up and they say their speech, and you've got the first vote.
It's like in the talent show. You already press yes. You're already agreeing for the next stage. Yes.
Yeah, you're going to the final stage. You're going to the final stage. So listen, the price of Bitcoin actually started to go up when Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on that Friday. So Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on the Friday. People realized that USDC was actually involved. They had $3.3 billion in Silicon Valley Bank. People then realized that their dollars in the bank aren't safe and their stable coins aren't safe, and they ran into Bitcoin. And that was the beginning. So do you believe that this is, people are starting to realize what I've kind of said here? I said it in a tweet earlier. I said, at what point do you become more concerned with the stability of the banking system?
Yes. I mean, and the reason I'm so bullish is because I see my own psychology shift. I have fundamentally 10x'd my conviction in crypto since the Silvergate and stablecoins. Because I myself and as example, had a bunch of stablecoins. I wake up at 3 a.m. Friday to Saturday, Sweden time. I wake up, I see USDC depegging. I'm like, what the hell? It's 0.97. It shouldn't be like this. And I know it's serious, like 97, it is serious. So I converted the entire thing to ETH and other coins. And since then, I don't have stable coins. And listen, it's not like I'm going to go back to TradFi. So if I'm thinking like that, then I'm extrapolating. I'm thinking, who else is in crypto who is thinking like that? Because we don't want to go to the banking space. The banks are also collapsing. So that's not an option. The only option is to stay in ETH, in Bitcoin and other cryptos, and to really embrace this as the system. Like, this is the system. I don't want any stable coins. I don't want any of that, because listen, they should be pegging to us. We should not be pegging to them, trying to invent some Frankenstein stable coin, which is very difficult. Like, the problem with stable coin, it's very difficult. You can try to have a stablecoin with a bank account backing it. That's the simplest thing, but of course it's a bank problem. 2, you can have an algorithmic stablecoin. That's where you do a Frankenstein, which kind of works, but not really. So we have, of course, Terra Luna collapsed. DAI was good in the past, but now they're backed by USDC because ETH was too volatile as collateral. So my conclusion here is that we're putting so much time in trying to mimic the dollar. Let's stop doing that. Let's trade everything in ETH and Bitcoin. I even said it on Twitter and I tagged CZ. Let's change all trading pairs to ETH and BTC like it was in the past, because we have the best money, worldwide money. It works. It's better than dollar. And also look what's happening now worldwide. Indonesia yesterday, they said, listen, we're going to be careful with MasterCard and Visa. Why? Because the US is using dollar and the TradFi settlement system in political reasons. Maybe for good political reasons, maybe for bad, but it's the fact that money is no longer this neutral global element. And on my channel, I say it's like, your coffee will not tell you cannot drink it because you're a bad person. The air will not sanction you and go away. It's neutral. So money needs to be like that. And Bitcoin is like that, and is the best money. And listen, I know I sound like a lunatic since that collapse, but it's crazy because I've 10x to 100x my conviction in crypto. I love it.
Okay, I'm hitting the buzzer again. You're going the second next round. You're going through to the second next round. Elio, I want to bring you in here. So I'm going to say you were a bit skeptical about.
Maybe exactly. Let Elio balance me. That's why we're here together.
Well, let's see. Is it going to be yin and yang or yin and yin? I don't know. We'll see in a few minutes. You've been the more, let's call it the more sober one, the more realistic one, the more. I don't know what the right word is, but you weren't really you didn't trust the pump. You didn't respect the pump in the beginning of the pump. Now, do you respect the pump now?
Yeah, I mean, so everything changed once the bailout started happening, right? And that to me is totally different. Like we were playing this game of like read the tea leaves. Like how did he tie his tie? Like did he seem happy? You know, like why are we doing this? And really the whole message that I was trying to send is we have no idea when the real pivot is going to happen. So why don't we just wait and see? And to me, undoing half of the QT from the last year and a half in one go, that's a change, right? And so I think over the last year, we've seen that the liquidity in the markets, like the total liquidity, seems to be the more important factor than interest rates, than all these things, because there is leverage, obviously, within the crypto system and within the Bitcoin system, but it's not as significant on price that I can see as the total liquidity in the universe, right? When they started printing money, it found its way into Bitcoin and crypto, but really what we're seeing is, regardless of interest rates, we're seeing a huge amount of new liquidity come in through this bank term funding program, whatever they're calling it. It's sort of stealthy yield curve control. Regardless of whichever way you slice it, more money's coming in now, starting as soon as the bailout happened. Whereas before that, it wasn't like that. And we kept saying on our channel, something's going to break. And when something breaks, let's talk about it then, because they'll come in and fix it with the one way they know how to fix things. And it's hard to argue that something didn't break. And it's hard to argue that Bitcoin, like Ivan said, is not having its single most important sort of eye-opening experience here, which is, this is the first time Bitcoin's responded to a black swan, to a huge negative, to a crash of sorts in the mainstream with a pump and with confidence. And so seeing that balance, it's hard not to feel like something new is happening. And that doesn't mean I just one click put everything in like Ivan, but my mindset has shifted into entering the market as opposed to waiting.
And is it the market or is it Bitcoin?
Oh, it's Bitcoin, it's Ethereum as well. But I'm also, of course, not a believer that the dynamics of crypto allow for Bitcoin to go on a solo run. I think that regardless, alts will eventually kind of trickle up, and that, of course, there will be narratives that will outperform. Even if, like, on the whole, Bitcoin is gaining dominance, we all know that there are tons of dramatic outperformers along the way. So it's just become, another round of the game. We all know how the game works, and there's always going to be outperforming altcoins, which are fun to find.
Yeah, we'll talk about the outperformance of altcoins, but I just need to have a quick question to Banter Girl. Could you just call up that Banter Girl? So I mean, and Banter Girl, I need to understand this. I feel like maybe you're cheating on us. Like if your name is Banter Girl, but then you're saying black coffee, no milk, no sugar, then I feel like maybe you've been with someone else. Could that be? Could it be that she's been with someone else? I don't know. I hope she can answer in the chat. Ishan, what do you think, bro?
Not me.
Yeah,
you don't drink black coffee, no milk, no sugar.
I definitely do. I got a little Americano right here. So, but as far as the kind of liquidity issue going on, I think that everyone's looking at the U.S. right now, and obviously, we're kind of the leaders on the kind of monetary front. But I think what people aren't realizing is that the U.S. can kind of be the last domino to fall, and we can still see a lot of money come into Bitcoin and a lot of these assets without actually needing like this mega hyperinflation that like Balaji is talking about, right? So one thing that I looked really closely at is this addition of the swap lines for the ECB, right? So essentially, like, we're giving a lot of liquidity to Europe right now, right? If you look at like South Asia, the Pakistani rupees, basically like doubled in the past 3 months. So there's a lot of other areas that liquidity is going to. So maybe the US is the last domino to fall, but I think there's a world where Bitcoin can probably get to $1 million, even with the US kind of still going and kind of treading water, because a lot of these other countries just don't have that kind of monetary power. A lot of those people, where are they going to put their money, right? When your money's actually hyperinflating, right? We're talking about speculating on hyperinflation, but a lot of these other countries, South America, Europe, Asia, a lot of these currencies are actually hyperinflating, and they don't have that Fed there with them in order to kind of bail them out, print more cash, and they don't have the demand for those dollars that the U.S. government has. So a lot of our dollars are going to go to a lot of places. So I think the U.S. might not be as bad as people are kind of making it out to be, but I'm more worried about other countries, and a lot of these other countries, that liquidity is enough to kind of push Bitcoin, and that's a lot of the reason why I think we're getting this old cycle.
So Bitcoin is definitely a function of liquidity. I don't have the chart here, but there's a chart that's been going around, and we've showed it to our community around how Bitcoin is just an image of a global liquidity. Now, if I look at global liquidity, Japan is crazy degening on liquidity. China is starting to re-stimulate the economy, crazy degen on liquidity. The Fed has done a great job in trying to get their balance sheet down, but I mean, this is what the balance sheet looks like. So, I leave this here as Exhibit B or Exhibit A or whatever it is. So, I mean, I don't think that you can deny, I don't think anybody can deny the fact that we're going into a higher liquidity environment. And if we are going into a higher liquidity environment, then, and it's for many reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is this banking collapse that that none of the politicians are willing to admit. But it's clearly there, because if you look at like credit default swaps for the major European banks, they're at all-time highs. You look at Deutsche Bank today. I mean, this is where it is, down 6%. I did actually have a chart. Maybe it is here. So this is a chart of Bitcoin versus all the banks, and you can see the banks. There's First Republic. There was Silvergate Bank, but it's. I mean, there's liquidity coming in various forms, and I think that's going to. I mean, you can deny it as much as you want. That's going to get Bitcoin to go up, and I think going back to Ellio's point, we've all been here for long enough to know that it feels like it's only going to be Bitcoin, and only when it really feels like it's only going to be Bitcoin and you should sell all your altcoins and get into Bitcoin, that's kind of like when alt season actually starts, right? So that's where I'm going to go with this. When alt season, sir? Ivan, when alt season, sir?
Well, I mean, Altseason is always here in one extent or another, depending on where you look. I mean, many coins are doing very well already. We had the AI Altseason because of ChatGPT. Whether that makes sense or not is up to debate, but they did pump, that's for sure. So Altseason is always with us if you're interested in finding those niches. And that's also why we're building a tool called moralismania.com, where you can see which coins are minted, which are getting whales buying, and so on and so forth. So for me, it's always Altseason. But on a broader scheme, when it comes to the top 100, top 50. We'll just have to see when Bitcoin pumps really hard and takes a breather and lets altcoins to catch up. I mean, right now Bitcoin is kind of sucking out the air in the room, but I don't think it's going to be that extensive. Why? Because if you have stable coins, you cannot buy Bitcoin with them. You can buy ETH on chain. So that's, I mean, I think that's a variable that will be interesting to follow that we did not really have in the last bear market, because in the last bear market, you didn't have Uniswap in the same extent. This bear market, you have Uniswap. So if you have stable coins, you don't want to use a centralized exchange, because in the last one you also didn't have FTX and all of the big exchanges collapse. So this bear market is, and now we're coming out of it, it's very different from the perspective that if you have stable coins, you don't actually want to touch a centralized exchange, and thus you cannot buy Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin pumps and you start to FOMO, you're gonna go quicker into ETH and into other stable coins. So that's what I think is more likely to happen this time. But listen, whether it's going to be at 40 or 30 when Bitcoin pumps and takes a breather and everyone starts forming into alts, we'll see. I'm just following along and reacting as the market gives us signals.
When you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do what you needed to do, and then you saw the 97, you said you went into ETH. You didn't go into Bitcoin. You said you went into ETH.
Well, I mean, whatever I had on centralized exchange, I took Bitcoin and then on-chain ETH, because there's no way to do anything else. So that's why ETH has such a strong argument that it didn't have it before, and that's that you can actually trade it without middlemen, and Bitcoin you cannot. So that's why I don't think Bitcoin will get too far ahead. And although ETH right now I think is losing in ETH Bitcoin chart, but I'm expecting ETH to do very well, because it is in many ways better than Bitcoin if you want to do something with your funds. And we in crypto, that's the thing. We cannot just have Bitcoin. It's too boring. It's too boring. We want to trade, like we want to do things. And that's where ETH is so nice. So that's why I think that ETH is the only thing you can actually trade without middlemen.
So another point going off that, Ivan, that I think is important is that as far as like alts and ETH, as far as like Operation Choke Point, and they're like, serving Coinbase the Wells notice, they're cutting down a lot of exchanges on ramps. I think it's going to be harder for users to get into maybe these longer tail assets. So I think Ethereum and a lot of alts are going to have a lot more trouble, where it's going to be probably easier to get into Bitcoin. Although you can't trade it P2P, there's still going to be enough on ramps and ways to get into it. And it's kind of the one asset that everybody kind of knows about. So I think that's also something to keep in mind.
True.
Yeah, you also, I mean, you can think of what's going on right now as an acceleration, just like COVID was an acceleration of many trends. I believe that the current banking collapse will accelerate other trends. And, what we're seeing is that effectively by nationalizing all this debt from the banks, you're effectively putting all these banks in firmer control within the central bank, within the sort of the larger banking ecosystem. It's really accelerating the whole world as it sort of moves towards a CBDC-like environment. So I don't think there's too many coincidences here. I think that you also see announcements like Bloomberg Crypto just announced that NASDAQ will be allowing you to safekeep your crypto starting in like a month. And this is as Operation Choke Point is happening, right? And so is it really a choke point? Is it really stamping it out? Or is it a transition to a new world where it's much easier to have the version of this that whoever you think they are, want? And I think that that's sort of where my belief is, that it's really just an acceleration of certain trends that are already happening. But as banks start defaulting, and then you need to come to daddy and say, hey, dad, I need a loan. They say, cool, well, here are the rules. And you say, okay, sure, great. Need to protect my depositors, of course. And that trend is going to be quite an unsettling one, right? Which is why, like Ivan, I'm very happy to have Bitcoin, which, as much as I love Ethereum and it stimulates my mind and my imagination, and it's where I'm building, the brand of Bitcoin is going to be something to behold over the next few years as the faith in banking is for the first time ever really shaken. Hold on.
If I look 24 months forward, because let's agree we're all here for at least 24 months. We're not looking at a 8-month or 3 months. If I look 24 months forward and I take today as a starting point, which one performs better, Bitcoin or ETH? Ivan, just simple, Bitcoin or ETH?
ETH.
Elio?
Yeah, ETH by a hair, by a small margin.
Okay.
24 months, I'd say ETH as well, and I wouldn't even say by a hair. I think there's still like a legit store of value argument to be made for ETH. Like I think there's like there's no reason why that just because you can use Ethereum and use it for gas and it has a deflationary aspect as well, that like if we get the education there, that it can be a store of value just as much.
Okay, so just for shits and giggles, the starting point for our discussion here is 1778 on ETH. And 28,152 on Bitcoin. Let's just use those as the base point. We will get you guys here again in 24 months, hopefully before.
Let's do it.
Hopefully before to do it. I want to play you something based on what Elio said, because I listened to this. It was a great interview done by the guys at Bankless, who we're very good friends with. Just listen to this.
The plan looks something like this. The U.S. has debts it can't pay, saddle all of the banks with these giant liabilities, have tons of them go bust, and swoop in as a hero, printing the money so people are like, thank you, Fed, you got me my money back. And then also have them all centralized at the big banks in the process. And then, amidst all the chaos, you've got like 4 banks in the U.S. and like 1 bank in Canada, or whatever the number is. And now you just roll out a CBDC, and now the banks that were too big to fail are too big to escape.
What do you think? Conspiracy? Has 𝗏𝗏𝗍 lost his mind? Because, the last time that I thought 𝗏𝗏𝗍 lost his mind, just for the record, the last time that I thought 𝗏𝗏𝗍 lost his mind was in January 2020, when no one knew what COVID was. And he was right about 9 out of 10 things that he predicted. So when this guy cries Bitcoin or cries wolf or whatever you want to call it, you kind of got to listen to the guy, no?
I mean, it's certainly provocative, right? The 90 days to $1 million Bitcoin, that is... You're talking about finding the degen. Like, that is one incredible bet. Well, look, I don't think any of us really want to live in a world where the reason why Bitcoin hits $1 million in 90 days is because of the extraordinary rapid hyperinflation of the dollar. That I think somebody said it. You'd probably be better off buying guns and ammo at that point. But it's certainly a provocative way to get the conversation started around the banking crisis, which is what I think we can all agree his intentions are.
So you're not going to be upset with him. You're not going to say the guy lost all his credibility when it doesn't happen. Because for me, it was like, look, it was a great marketing stint on his behalf. He got millions of podcasts. He got hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers. He did a great marketing stint for Bitcoin, which was, I think we can all thank him for. But I question, like, a guy who had so much credibility, like his last statement was COVID, and he wrote a 10-part tweet thread about COVID. And in that 10-part tweet thread, 9 out of 10 things came right. And now he comes out with this, I don't know, crazy statement. I want to actually play you what the guys from the All In Pod dropped just before the show. I want to just play you what the guys from the All In Pod said about it.
All right, so let's explain the 𝗏𝗏𝗍 bet, since that trended, and he is the boy who, as you're saying, cried wolf this past week.
Cried Bitcoin.
Yeah, the boy cried Bitcoin. Very well said. So a friend of the pod, 𝗏𝗏𝗍, on March 17th predicted that Bitcoin will reach $1 million in 90 days due to U.S. hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is defined as prices going up 50% month over month, just so we're clear on exactly how dramatic that is. He made the bet on March 17th against a pseudonymous Twitter user, James Medlock, who said they would bet 1 million that the U.S. would not experience hyperinflation. So 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗅 sort of inserted Bitcoin into that bet. It wasn't a Bitcoin bet then, and I think he's done 2 of these bets. So he's betting 2 million in total on Bitcoin hitting 1 million by June 17th, which there's probably no chance of that happening, or a very tiny chance. I'll ask the panel in a second. Bitcoin was trading at 26,000 at the time. It's now trading at over 28,000. And 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗅 has been on every podcast known to man in the last 72 hours talking about this. I've watched 1 or 2 of them, and it's a pretty out there argument, I think. You can just type in 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗅 on YouTube and watch any of the 20 he's done. He believes regional banks are insolvent. He thinks the Fed is going to need to print a massive amount of money, like we've said here, do more QE, and then cut rates. It all seems reasonable. But that will lead to hyperinflation.
It's not reasonable.
Well, no, it's not that it's reasonable. We just printed that they're going to cut rates. We just discussed they're going to eventually cut rates, and there'll be more QE. So that part is reasonable. Just that one little piece. But then he believes is the part that is kind of out there, that hyperinflation is going to devalue the dollar, and this is the time. He does not, and I made a bunch of. I asked him this a bunch of times, and he would not be honest about it, or didn't want to answer my question. I said, hey, what percentage are you in Bitcoin? Somebody says he's 99% in Bitcoin. He will not confirm. And so I was like, well, if you own 1,000 Bitcoins, if this goes up, you know.
Is he talking his own book? Is he done a very expensive very effective, expensive marketing campaign for himself? What do you think?
I mean, he's pretty transparently talking his book, but I mean, at the same time, that's okay. I feel like that's part of the experiment, which is if you really believe that hyperinflation is coming and you're not heavily allocated to Bitcoin, then do you really believe? So you'd have to assume that if you make that bet and you have credibility as a human in the situation, that you by extension are talking your book,
I mean, I must say the first thing I did when it happened is I bought a whole lot of Bitcoin. I bought them on margin because I'm a degen, but I mean, I got to admit it that I bought a whole lot of Bitcoin. I think I bought 10 Bitcoin. Yeah, here's the position over here. I'm actually going to show you. It was 11. There we go. I bought 11 Bitcoin. I bought them at 27.5. And I thought, just in case, I mean, I know he's not right, but just in case he is right, I want to just make sure that I have a little bit more Bitcoin than I've got. So, I mean, it did do what it was supposed to do, right?
I mean, I've been stocking up Bitcoin happily for the first time really in a long time, and just very excited about the concept of people seeing, because people do like Ethereum and people love Ethereum, but people associate Bitcoin with the brand of the narrative, which is inflation, hedge, safe haven. And that is, branding is so important in the minds of humans. And so when you think about like the brand that people will jump into, if there is hyperinflation, I believe that Bitcoin will be the big bucket, right? And so that's when people are looking for safety, you know what I mean? They're going to be looking for the safest thing in the crypto space. And so that's where I get excited, because I feel like Bitcoin going on some kind of solo or lead actor run is the best possible scenario, because eventually, like Ivan said, there will be a stabilization, and the dynamics, the machine that is crypto will work its liquidity around. Just like global net liquidity finds its way into Bitcoin, Bitcoin liquidity finds its way into other projects.
How concerned are you about ETH being a security, given the fact that we know it wasn't a security, or we think it wasn't a security, both on SEC, CFTC, but then they moved from proof of work to proof of stake. And then Gary Gensler came out and said, hold on a second, if you're in proof of stake, a person deposits his ETH with the expectation of profit, expectation of make return, that has to be a security. How concerned are you guys that this could affect ETH, and especially on the background of the latest attack on proof of stake by the SEC against Coinbase, which we spoke about earlier this week? Are you guys concerned about this, or do you think that now the SEC is basically picked a fight with the wrong people?
I think this is kind of the. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
sorry. No, I think there's a lot of nuance because it depends what you mean. Do you mean the ICO? Is that something that they did that was wrong? Is it the services built on top of ETH that generate yield? For example, Coinbase Earn or what it's called, or is it the actual token itself? And we don't know that because any one of these could be classified as a securities offering. My understanding, at least, of course, I'm not a lawyer here, but my understanding is that it can be one of these three. And what will be interesting to see is how Ripple case will end and what kind of result that will yield. Because if you look at EOS, for example, EOS is still trading, although Block 1 got a fine, a very small fine for what? For doing the ICO, and that's it. And token itself is fantastically fine. It's now governed by some other entity which doesn't like Block 1 even. So the token has survived perfectly fine. So I think that ETH is not going to be classified as a security, the asset, and the reason is because the US government themselves have made so many different statements. CFTC says it's a commodity. Gensler says it's a security. But before Gensler, the previous guy, Jay Clayton, said that it's a commodity. So it doesn't make sense. So how do you expect us, normal human beings, traders, entrepreneurs, to make the call when you yourself cannot make the call and you are regulators? So I'm not very worried because if that happens and if they start, especially if they start penalizing people retroactively for trading or speaking about ETH or offering ETH services, then it is not rule of law. Then it is some kind of crazy government overreach. But what may happen is that they say, okay, from this point on, you cannot offer staking in your exchange because that is a security offering. But you can still offer it on the protocol level because it's just a centralized network. So I think the answer there is going to be way more nuanced than the Bitcoin maxis want to believe that it is just going to be a security and everyone just goes to jail whoever mentioned or touched ETH. That's probably not going to happen.
When I heard that Coinbase was suing the SEC, or that the SEC may be suing Coinbase when they issued the Wells notice, I thought, great, let's go to war. Because I'm a layman. I don't think we could have picked a better fighter than the most well-funded, most compliant, most well-backed Silicon Valley crypto startup, who has been trying to do the best. You know, I read the tweets that they sent out from the CTO. They said they met the SEC over 30 times and they did more of the talking, and the SEC basically couldn't give them any guidelines. And I take that and I put that on the background of what happened with the judge in the Voyager case, where the judge in the Voyager case said, guys, I mean, come on, you can't seriously tell me that you're not willing to give them guidance and then you want to stop this. I
mean, I feel this is very unfair treatment of this industry, and who knows what kind of interest the SEC has. I don't want to be conspiracy theories, but maybe BitBoy should travel to them and dig in their dirty laundry because he's doing that all the time now. I love that. I don't know if you guys watch. He's traveling to the lawyer office of the Celsius network. We need BitBoy to do this investigation thoroughly because why are they treating crypto so unfairly? They're saying maybe a security, maybe not a security, maybe this is security, maybe not, and they cannot tell themselves. It's so annoying. So I find
they're setting
weird.
up for their court case, and they're about to drop probably a lot of aggressive actions. And what I love is that what we've seen is the trend that I'm really interested in is the judicial process, which is the ultimate decider of law in the United States, which is regulators create enforcement actions. Often Congress can put out even new legislation, but the ultimate decider as to whether or not that gets upheld is the court system. And what we've seen out of the court system over the last sort of 30 to 60 days has been incredibly promising for crypto, because you're seeing a lot of these blanket statements getting rebuffed. The court system, the judges are saying, wait, you can't just blanket statement this. There needs to be logic. You need to tie this to the letter of the law. And ultimately, in the United States, we have the highest court body is the Supreme Court. And right now, we have almost never had a Supreme Court that is as conservative as it is now. So if this goes up and up and up, which it will do, the XRP case or Ripple case, no matter what happens, it's getting appealed. Like if SEC loses, it's getting appealed. If Ripple loses, it's getting appealed and it goes up to the higher court. I would not be shocked if something like an ETH security case actually does come out, that it would go up to the Supreme Court eventually.
You're sure.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It would go up to the Supreme Court eventually, which I'm quite confident would land on the side of less restrictions, because that's just the nature of a conservative court, is they're not going to allow for sort of a blanket government control over something so hard to classify.
That's why I was like, bring it on. You want to go to battle? Look, that's our best fighter. He's the most well-funded. He's the most well-versed. He has the best political connections. Go ahead. You want to go in a ring? You want to go into a ring with us? You bring your best man. We'll bring our best man, and let's go into the ring. Ishan, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, right? If there's anyone that you want fighting this battle, it's someone like Coinbase that has the funding, that has the firepower, that has, a guy like, 𝗙𝗵𝗃𝗆𝗆𝗆, or, he's a CPO, and, he spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill. He's done a lot of the rounds already. So you want the best of the best, and that's what Coinbase is. So I think there's a fair bit of optimism to be had. That we're in good hands, and this is what we want, right? We want the clarity, and hopefully this will help us get as close as possible to that.
Yeah, listen, one of the viewers said that we haven't asked people to subscribe yet to the channel, and to subscribe to all the channels, which are all down below. So in the spirit of having Ivan back on the show,
You are watching on YouTube, be sure to do the algorithm.
Like, subscribe, bell button, all. 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 Number 1, smash the like as soon as possible. Number 2, smash the subscribe button, the bell button and all, the bell button and all, the bell button and all. It's a very, very important algorithm, and literally if you do this, Bitcoin will be pumping, 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 Bitcoin will be pumping by YouTube. Like, subscribe, bell button, all. 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 Like, subscribe, bell button, all.
I think you get the idea. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, to Ivan's channel, to Elio's channel, Ishan, don't have it. No, Ivan, those were good days, man. Those were good days. The days of like, subscribe, bell button, all of that.
Exactly. And listen, we're coming back there. I mean, this is the thing. Whenever you're early on in the bull cycle, I think that video was recorded not at the peak. It was like the early days. I get the flashbacks from that. Because even at that point, when we were saying ETH at 300, it's cheap. It's very cheap. It's $300. What the hell? Now it's the same. I'm thinking, how is Bitcoin still not 100K with everything that's happening? How is ETH below 10K? I don't get it. So I think we're gonna teleport there as sooner or later, and it feels that we're getting the flashback from those times again.
It was unbelievable. As people started to like, subscribe, actually Bitcoin was pump. Bitcoin was pump. So it was under 28,000, and now it's at 28,055. So you guys did a very, very good job. All right, listen, let's talk about some altcoins. Let's talk about Arbitrum. Arbitrum launched yesterday. $1. Let's quickly just have a look at it. Let's just look where we're at. $1.40, fully diluted valuation of 14 billion. Fair value, not fair value. Is there a trade here? Is there no trade here? What do you guys think? Elio, DJ.
I mean,
first.
the trade was what, your channel and our channel. I'm sure Ivan mentioned it. Everyone said, go farm this thing, right? It's free money. And there's a few of these that'll come along each year, and it'll be a really easy way to make a buck. I know people who farmed a lot and did very well. The other one, 𝗙𝗵𝗃, coming up next. I think it's really, really tricky to do these, but I've noticed a trend that usually the price suppression on the airdrop ends within the first sort of 6 hours, and then you usually get like a trend up, and you usually see a peak between 48 and 96 hours after the airdrop. The thing is that people have gotten better at this game, and so as the market matures in its understanding of the dump and the pump and all that, you get people who adjust their behaviors. And so what we're seeing with Arbitrum is, I think people expected more of a breakout from the lows. It seems to be kind of held up here because I don't think the selling was as much as people thought. This is one that people actually want to hold, which is interesting. So, I mean, look, it's hard to argue that Arbitrum isn't kind of, in many ways, in many metrics, the leader of the L2 race. So whether or not that ends up being the case is up in the air, but they're definitely doing very, very well metrics-wise.
Okay, so let me ask you. So Arbitrum is clear. I think it's clearly the leader in terms of users and transactions and everything else. But Arbitrum is still optimistic rollups. And I think that the consensus is that maybe ZK rollups is a better technology, I guess. So
But
when you
but
have,
will it get to its destination fast enough to get the market share?
can you justify
Well, I mean,
buying? Can you justify buying an optimistic rollup at a $15 billion market cap?
You can justify getting it for free.
For free. Ishan, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So, I think we're just starting like a ZK EVM season, right? We have ZK Sync coming out. I think they tried to front run Polygon. Polygon's the same March 27th for months and months. So you have, Polygon ZK EVM dropping on Monday. You also have, so I think we're going to see L2 season, right? I think like a lot of this money is going to probably flow out of Arbitrum at some point, or at least some of the liquidity. Maybe it's going to go to Arbitrum ops. Maybe it's going to go to other L2s, right? You have Optimism. You have, Mantle Network on out of Bybit, so BitDAO, where I know you guys are big Bybit fans. I think L2 season, there's a good chance, if we kind of still stay steady with this pump, we can see a little mini L2 season.
Okay, Ivan, what do you think? A mini L2 season? Because there's not an L1 season, that's for sure. The L1s are pretty dead. If you look at like Solana, if you look at NIA, if you look at Cardano, I mean, the L1s look like shit, to be honest.
Yeah, I think most people, they're mainly right now moving towards L2s for each and every day transaction, because it's so easy. It's the same network, it's the same wallet, everything is the same. So it's just a cheaper transaction. So it's just more brand awareness. And I definitely also am bullish on the overall concept of L2 season. But when it comes to Arbitrum, that made me more bullish on Optimism, because I think it is right now 2x or so from Optimism. And the difference in metrics is not that big. When you look at L2 beat, yes, Arbitrum is bigger in TVL than Optimism. Arbitrum is number one, but Optimism is not that far behind, and I think the market will value them similarly. And right now there is a big gap. So either Arbitrum will have to come down a bit, or Optimism will have to pump up. But I view them in the same in a similar bucket. And also, by the way, when it comes to ZK Sync, I also agree. ZK is the end goal of all scaling solutions, because you have unlimited transactions on layer 2, and then you settle them on layer 1. And with ZK, it's really trustless. Optimistic is not fully trustless, but ZK is. But the thing with Arbitrum is that they are evolving. They now have Arbitrum 1 and Arbitrum, Nova, which is another thing. Polygon started with only proof of stake. Now there is ZK EVM, there is this, there and that. They're going to have 5 different other networks soon as well, Hermes and a few other ones. So I think Arbitrum is more like a brand. It's like Uniswap. They started with a DEX, now they also have NFTs. So I wouldn't say that they are fully committed to only optimistic. They can easily do ZK in the future as well. So it's more of a brand, and I'm very curious how the hell they're gonna keep users, because there's no difference. If I'm a developer on Arbitrum, I can just copy paste it into Optimism in 1 second. So that's why I'm very curious how this meme EVMs are gonna perform, because there you actually have a moat. you have the community, which is Dija, whether it is Shibarium with all the Shiba community, which is crazy, or Pulse because they have Hex community, which is crazy. I mean, there you actually have a moat, because you don't get the same crazy lunatics that you are part of and you feel home with in any other chain. And the same thing with if you're developing on this, meme, and there is also Doge chain. So I think this EVM space is really gonna heat up, and it's gonna be this layer 2s, VC layer 2s like Arbitrum, Optimism, and then this meme lunatic layer 2s and layer 1s. But it doesn't really matter. It's just faster. I don't even think about them as L2, L1. I think about them like faster ETHs, and they're all EVM, and they're all the same for users and developers. That's going to be the big battle. Which one is going to win, the VC funded ones or the Mima mental ones? Let's see. It's fantastic.
Well, I think your point's true. There's no moat, and so
there's no moat.
We're gonna, and it's also like, if it's truly in a layer 2, you should be prioritizing the use of ETH within the network. And so at a certain level, we know the narrative game is what happens in crypto. Momentum behind a narrative, all the coins pump, it's all the future. And that's gonna happen with L2s for sure, probably many times. But the question is, looking 5 years, 10 years into the future, what is the real beneficiary? It's probably ETH, and it's probably going to be very hard for a lot of these tokens to defend against, developers jumping around, users jumping around, and it very well from a UX perspective might get obfuscated to the point where you don't know which L2 you're on. You don't know, and maybe they pull from different L2s, kind of like our modern internet, where we don't know what database our websites are on. It just works.
I also think one thing is like, and this might be a little controversial, but it's like, what's like the killer unique app on Arbitrum, right? Like it's GMX. Okay, well, like GMX was also on Avalanche. and like was pretty successful on Avalanche before. Like, what is that killer unique application that's not anywhere else? It's like some degen farming, like, okay, there's some dexes, but like, what is that massive application that's not anywhere else that's bringing people to Arbitrum? I don't really see one. And so that's why it's like, I totally agree with Ivan. It's going to be copy and pasting. You know, I think base is going to be big. I think, you know, there's a world where KYC DeFi can probably be bigger than our kind of degen DeFi. So I do agree. Like, it's, you know, it's like L2s are like a commodity at this point.
I must say, I think the one thing that we all agree on here is that I had a chat this morning to 𝗲𝗿𝗍𝗆, who's one of the guys that works with us. And I said to him on the morning call today, we said, if you had $10,000 to invest in crypto, or $1,000 to invest in crypto, where would you invest the money right now? And that's like a general call that we have just to get a gauge of where people are putting their money. And Miles actually came up with something very clever. He said, if I had $1,000, I wouldn't put my money into crypto. What I would do is I'd just farm airdrops. I'd sit all day long and I would just farm airdrops, and I'd learn to use all the different chains. And then he made a tweet. It's on my Twitter. You can go look at it. But he pointed out like a whole lot of airdrops that are about to happen. So, and with actually a whole lot of different ways of getting the airdrop. So Layer 0 Labs is coming up, ZK Sync, Scroll ZKP, Sui Network, Starknet, Shardiem, Lens Protocol, Fuel Network, Stay Network. So to me, it just feels like, number one, if you've got a little bit of money, the best thing that you can do is go and educate yourself on how these things work and actually start using all the networks. And two, if you're a crypto operation, you should probably have a desk full of airdrop farmers. Or am I getting this all wrong?
No, it's a good take. It's just, I kind of wanted to, before we leave, to go fully onto that, the moat to me, that when you talk about in 10 years, what's the moat? The moat to me is always going to be the application layer, right? Where that is something that we completely disregard in crypto just because there just hasn't been hit applications. But I believe very strongly that in the future, just like in Web 2, the value will accrue to the application layer, because that's where the users are and that's where their loyalty is. You know, that's where they actually care about is the services, the games, the experiences that they're going to prioritize. And then, you know, on that note, I think you see over 80% of the new game funding has flowed into the combination of Immutable X and Polygon. So, you know, looking at ZK, it's like, okay, well, if you have a few hit games, if like a Fortnite level success, that wherever they are is going to be capitalizing on so much of a higher user adoption, and they're going to use the technology that makes their community happy. And it's not going to matter. They might even have their own chain.
I must say, you mentioned Immutable X. I spent some time with Robbie from Immutable X at Satoshi Roundtable in Dubai. I'm a big fan of what Immutable X is doing, and I think the partnership with Polygon is great. And I think the games that they've got and the funding that they've got. I think the one thing that maybe you can educate me otherwise, but the one red flag that I've got is that only 20% of the revenue of the gas on the chain accrues to the Immutable X token, and the other 80% accrues to the Immutable X centralized company. And for me, I don't like being in a situation where you've got a chain and a red flag. I'm going to admit that they probably have the best gaming ecosystem out there, and they're the smartest gaming guys out there with the smartest partnerships and probably the best Web3 games at the moment. But I just can't reconcile getting into a chain where 20% accrues to the chain holders and 80% accruing to a centralized company. And I think that 80% of people in crypto don't know that, and 20% of people do know that, which is, you know, that's the information asymmetry, which is a problem for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair take. I would say, for full disclosure, I am a seed investor in Immutable X. And so I'm obviously quite biased and hoping they do astronomically well. However, I do see that they behave more in some ways like an application than a base layer chain. Exactly. And that's quite true. They have a centralized order book so that all the DEXs or all the NFT exchanges on their platform all have a single order book that they actually run and collect a fee off of already. So it's so there's definitely some very valid critiques you can make as to their tokenomics, for sure. That said, when we think about, you know, moat, and we just think about like what is defensible, if there's IP or if there's an experience or an application in general, I think that kind of stuff is defensible over time, and it will be the thing that sort of makes these chains long-term live and die, which is why, you know, things like Ape to me or ApeCoin or whatever, like if that is successful, their MMO, we don't know if it will be, we have no idea. But if they're able to build a successful MMORPG, then I think it bodes well for the project. And if they're not, then it doesn't. But if they do, then why would they be on anything other than their own ape chain? You know, because that's such an opportunity where they can sort of king make themselves. And I think that'll be the case. Most other game makers, though, won't want to make their own chain. So, you know, will it be a Polygon? Will it be the Polygon Immutable? Will it be Arbitrum? Those conversations to me will inform the 5-year out future as to what is the most used L2.
Ishan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a really good parallel there between like Immutable X and like something like SushiSwap, where like the SushiSwap had to turn off dividends, right? And so they stopped paying to 𝗙𝗏𝗃 holders. I think the same way, right? Like, you know, if you're a long-term like investor or holder of IMX, right, you want them to go out and spend all of that money to build the best possible ecosystem, right? Because what we're talking about is like pennies right now, and what they're shooting for are like, you know, dollars and lots of them, right? So when you think big picture, I mean,
but a centralized company is going to get 80% in perpetuity, whereas the community is going to get 20% in perpetuity. And for me, that's, imagine Ethereum said that Vitalik and his private company were going to get 80% of all the I don't call it revenue, call it whatever you want, call it gains. I don't know what you want to call it. And then 20% goes to the rest of the ETH community. It just doesn't.
I don't necessarily think that's a like a great comparison there, because I see Immutable X as almost like a Steam type of product, right? Where it's like an ecosystem that you're kind of building around these things. So if I'm an investor, and unfortunately I'm not lucky enough like Elio, but you know, if I was, you know, I would want them to be investing in building the biggest possible ecosystem they can have, right? So I want them to be shooting for the stars, because if they're giving 80% to the holders, yeah, it's short term, but long term, I would rather them build a massive ecosystem where, you know, you're talking about like, you know, let's say it's $1 in total revenue that they're splitting 80-20, whereas in the future it can be like $1 million that they're splitting 80-20, right?
Listen, guys, before we go, I just want to ask Ivan a question. Ivan, what is the biggest bubble that you see on that screen? The biggest one, the biggest bubble that you see on that screen?
The biggest red one, Hex.
Okay,
we're being scammed to the downside today. I'm joking, because whenever I mention Hex, people tell me, "Oh, Ivan, you're being scammed." So when we pump, I'm saying, "Guys, we're being scammed to the upside." And when we're down, so today we're being scammed to the downside, like you see on the screen, minus 25%.
So you've developed an obsession with Hex, like of late.
Well, I mean, we have the Pulse chain launching, so that's going to be very fun for those momental reasons. And it is right now one of the coins that has done, 4 or 5x in the past months or so. So So when you're saying that altcoin season is not here, that's what I'm saying. Like, there is altcoin season if you look for it. Like, you can always find a nice pump somewhere. So for me, it's just that the narrative is here, and the chain is launching, so the gains are also here. And by the way, one thing, just to go back to the topic we just discussed with centralization, I think that the chicken is coming to roost. Is that how you say? Like, there is going to be an important event in the industry where we will have to decentralize, like, for real, because we have a problem now. Even the L2s we discussed, Arbitrum, Optimism, like, they're not fully decentralized. And as we're seeing the government really take action, everything that is not fully decentralized is gonna feel the heat, I think, in one way or another. So that's why it's so important to be fully decentralized as soon as possible, because if they cannot regulate, they will say they never wanted to. Just like with Bitcoin, they said it's a commodity. We never wanted to regulate it, but of course, if they could, they would. But because they can't, they say we never wanted to. So I think that that's going to be super important overall to have a real decentralization, because everything else, they're gonna say it's a money transmitter. You have some chain, it's not fully decentralized. What's the difference between that and a centralized exchange? I mean, really think about it. Can they make such an argument? Probably they can say it's kind of like centralized exchange. So yeah, that's the
Sushi got a subpoena. I've heard that a lot of the decentralized staking protocols have got correspondence from government agencies. I don't know how much of it's true, but it just shows that what we think is decentralized isn't as decentralized as we think. I mean, I'll talk about that relative to our sponsor in a couple of minutes. Ivan, before I let you go, so people are saying that the reason why you respect Hex so much is because...
Fundamentals. What is the fundamental? Fundamentals. Fundamentals. But fundamentals will always ensure that you at least pump initially. Fundamentals. The best thing is to have 50% fundamentals. Nice. 50% fundamentals. 50%.
Great memories. Reminds me of the 2017.
Ivan does not get nearly enough credit for his contribution to crypto culture.
We're coming back, guys. It's
Yeah, we're coming back. So listen, speaking of coming back, so first of all, I must say I've really enjoyed this because I feel like I'm in the company of friends. I feel like I'm in the company of degens. You know, we can have real discussions. It's not it's not an us and them. I think so. So I think we need to do this more often. I think we found the perfect. Like the All In podcast. I think we found our All In. We found the DJs
right.
again together. So also, just by the way, there are links to Ellio's channel. There's a link to Ishan's Twitter. There's a link to Ivan's channel. Ivan took a bit of a sabbatical, but he's back and he's broadcasting every day like an atomic clock. No.
Yeah, exactly. So 8 a.m. on weekdays, 10 a.m. on weekends, like an atomic clock each and every day. So let's do it, guys. Bull market is back. We're all back. Good to see you all. It was very fun speaking to you guys.
Yeah, listen, it's been a lot of fun, guys. Thank you, Ellio. Nice to see you again. I know we haven't spoken for a while, but great to get you back. You're looking good, bro. You're looking strong, and you're looking fit, and yeah, don't take your shirt off. I think that's for next time, for the next show.
That one's not included in the current payment. And thank you for that payment, Rand. I'll be back.
Yeah, just remember also that to subscribe to all the guys' channels, guys. Thank you so much. Much love from me and the Banter fam. So good to see you guys. Love those guys. Listen, I do think we found our all-in podcast mixer. I mean, that for me was like, when I'm with them, I feel like I'm in the company of friends and fellow DJs and people that you and I can all relate to. So yeah, we'll definitely get those guys back. Remember again that the Friday DJs are brought to you, the Friday DJs, you see? We should call them Friday DJs when these guys come on. Remember that they are brought to you by NordVPN. If you don't have a VPN, you heard what Ivan said about centralization and non-centralization. The protocols that you think are decentralized are not decentralized. They have centralized companies somewhere, and they are collecting your IP address every single time you interact with the protocol. So you want to prevent that, $3.49 a month. Just go. There's a link below. You also help one of our sponsors. Go and do it. Go and do it now. And if you already have a VPN, go and take out this. For me, this is a great product. This 𝗙𝗵𝗲𝗃, getting my details removed off databases where I get those ridiculous calls and stuff like that. Man, this is the best service in the world for me. So this is definitely something that I'm going to be buying. So that's that. Let's quickly look at the markets before we go, because it is a weekend coming up. The market, Bitcoin's at 28,000. I'm trying to get an entry into this, but I'm not going to degen. I'm not degening. I'm only going to, if it goes like $1.10, $1, I'm degening. Otherwise, I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting for this. I don't really think that there's a good enough reason to be fighting here. Yeah, I will see you guys again on Monday. Unless, actually, no. On Sunday, we're going to do an options trading course on the channel. So live option trading course, we'll be trading options with you guys. If you want to be part of that options trading, it's obviously free. You go to the link below. There's a 𝗬𝗏𝗏 link. Open an account on 𝗬𝗏𝗏 because we are going to be showing you how to use 𝗬𝗏𝗏 to trade options. People are talking about Binance and exchanges cannot withdraw. Yes, 𝗙𝗍 has been live. He has been talking about it. Everything will be okay. I promise you there's nothing wrong. It was just a breakdown in the system, and they are rebooting the system. And then their system has to do a whole lot of double checks before they actually allow people to withdraw. So everyone says, bro, we are dumping. We are dumping. We went from 28,050 to 27,950. We are dumping. You, sir, are looking at the 3-minute charts. I'll see you guys again on the weekend. Make sure you got your 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 account. Sign up with us so you can be part of our options course. We'll sit and spend Sunday afternoon together, and we will be doing options. I'll see you guys then. Until then, trade well, my friends.